the other markets that you're excited about and why?
So the why will kind of push the first question, but like so for me on a 15 or 20 year outlook on deal, like what is the market going to be doing? What is the what are the conditions going to be like in 20 years? I'm trying to think of not just having like a 3 year let's make quick money forecast. Like I want to be like in this market for a long time. And so for kind of looking around and seeing what's going on in like the southeast and the South Texas markets like that, the I think it's like 4 or 5 summers in a row where it's like the hottest on record. So it's like for me, climates is pushing me in a certain direction, and there's two fronts there. One is like, what's going to be a stable climate that's not going to push people out um, of this area, and then also being from Denver, being from the West, and growing up my whole life in the West, we have water problems out here. It's like Denver, not so much, but if you're in Phoenix, Vegas, uh, parts of Utah, parts of California, we there's a definite um, populations like too big for the amount of water that they need, and so putting those two things into a factor, I'm looking into the Great Lakes areas, where the climate is predicted to be stable and not push people out with giant weather swings, and then obviously access to fresh water. They have no problem with that at all. And plus that, and you have to factor in the other things that we talked about earlier, which is, crime rate and population growth and jobs and, price to rent ratio and all of those things. There's probably 30 to 40 markets, in the Great Lakes area, whether it's Wisconsin, Illinois, Ohio, Michigan, New York. There's probably 30 markets in there that we could land in, but we're in the process of kind of whittling down, where that looks like. So, but long story long, that's kind of what we're looking at, and why.
Over the years, I'm sure you have learned a lot about real estate, right? And do's and don'ts. So can you share some of your biggest do's and don'ts for the audiences?
Oh, you want to hear about my failures, huh? All right. Um,
Well, it's not really about your failures, but it's more about how did you overcome those failures, right? We all have those.
yeah, yeah,
And if we don't have those, I think we haven't learned.
yeah. No, I learned a lesson. I first heard about the lesson and then I learned it in person. Um, I had I was trying to do a deal with Jay Scott, who's another Bigger Pockets author. He wrote a book on flipping houses and book on negotiating real estate, and I think three or four others. But like, this is probably like, I don't know, it's probably 10 years ago now. But um, he was based in Atlanta at the time, um, and I had found some REO deals in Atlanta, and I was shopping them to him. I just said, hey, you're doing some flips down there. I found some REO deals. If I could make a couple thousand off of them, great, and you can have more inventory for your business. Um, and I remember him going through one of the properties, and uh, there was like a beam or something that was um, that just needed more repair than he had budgeted for. So at the end of the day, his offer was about $500 off of of what I was offering the property at. And at the time I was just like who cares? Like it's $500. Like just eat it, or like there's got to be room in this deal. Like you probably have 30, $40,000, budgeted for profit. And I remember him just being like, no, if you move your goalposts or if you open up your buy box on this one deal and you kind of loosen your guidelines on this one, you're just gonna like keep doing that. and then the next one will be like, oh, this one's $1,500 off, and the next thing you know, you're like taking on deals that are so far outside of your like business buy box that you're just going to get yourself in trouble. And at the time, I kind of like dismissed it. I was like, oh, Jay's just being like extremely conservative about this. Um, we ended up not doing the deal because it would have been negative. Like I got down to the property where I was losing money. Like I would have lost the $500. Probably would have been worth it just to do another deal with Jay. But I ended up we canceled. We parted ways as friends. And and it wasn't till like 3 or 4 years later till I did that, where I'm looking at a deal. I don't touch structural deals. Um, I just like as an agent and as an investor, there's just there's just a stigma and disclose, like even if you disclose everything and if everything was fixed, there's still like a stigma that buyers have on ooh, scary structural. It's like the worst thing possible that can happen to a property. And so I was a little like hard up for a deal. It had been uh kind of a slow quarter. I got presented a deal where it was the structural bid was in place. All the rest of the property was great, just needed a little bit of cosmetics here and there. So on paper, it's a great deal. I broke my buy box. I went outside my buy box to get this structural deal, and and it was kind of like two or three things happened that were related to the structural, where like they couldn't lift the house uh, as much as they had promised, and so there was still a noticeable slope when you're walking in the house, which is not great, by the way, when you're trying to sell a flip. People kind of like straight level houses, and so and then the basement flooded while it was listed as well, which is not really related to structural, but it kind of just ate into what was already a thin deal. It was like okay, it was an okay deal. And between those two things and it sitting on the market for 6 months, which is roughly, I think it was twice the amount of time that we had budgeted for because of the structural. Um, we lost. It was one of the only like two or three deals that we've ever lost money on, and it was just like one of those things where I'm like, oh, Jay was right. Like you have your box for a reason, and if you go outside of it for dumb reasons, for reasons of like I need to do this deal or um, whatever those reasons are, the next one you could see yourself kind of shimmying and opening up your buy box a little bit, and yeah, structural deals are fine, and there's calculated ways to do all of that. But I just remember like learning that lesson, not paying attention to it, and then later on learning that lesson by having to write a check for like 30 grand at closing in order to close a property that I'm trying to flip. So I lost, you know, I lost 30 grand on that property, and it taught me, oh, this is why I stay inside my buy box and take on deals that don't have structural. So that's kind of like a two-part story of me ignoring a lesson and then learning it later on and going, oh, like Jay was right the whole time.
It's a good lesson. Even I kind of learned from it because
Yeah.
it's a good, inspiring story. Because yeah, structurals. I don't think I have bought any structurals as of now, but I'll keep that in mind. Just avoid it. I mean, there's so much to deal with. Why should you deal with something that has been touched upon? There's no
Yeah.
reason. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.